Mary, the mother of Jesus, is one of the most recognized religious figures in history. Both Christianity and Islam honor her in their sacred texts and hold her in high regard. But how much of these accounts are rooted in historical reality? Are there any historical clues to support or challenge the claim that Mary was a real person? Answering these questions takes us back to ancient times, exploring the context of sacred texts and the limitations of historical records. Mary is believed to have lived in the early 1st century in Judea, a province of the Roman Empire, modern-day Israel and Palestine. During this time, Judea was a region rife with political and religious tension. The Roman occupation often sparked uprisings among the Jewish people. This cultural and political backdrop played a significant role in shaping Mary's story. In Jewish culture, women were generally not prominent in public or historical records. Their lives often remained undocumented, especially those of ordinary women. This makes Mary's prominence in both history and faith traditions all the more extraordinary. In Christianity, Mary is featured prominently in the Gospels of Luke and Matthew. Luke's Gospel recounts the story of the angel Gabriel announcing to Mary that she would give birth to Jesus, known as the Annunciation. Matthew's Gospel focuses more on Mary's role in Jesus' birth and early years. However, these accounts are more theological than historical in nature, emphasizing Christian beliefs rather than concrete facts. In Islam, Mary, known as Maryam, is highly revered as a symbol of purity and devotion. The Quran describes her miraculous conception of Jesus as a sign of God's power. However, like the Bible, the Quran's account is rooted in faith and spiritual lessons rather than historical documentation. There is no direct archaeological or written evidence confirming Mary's existence. However, this absence doesn't necessarily prove she wasn't real. Records of ordinary individuals from 1st century Judea are scarce. During this period, historical writings often focused on kings, wars, and major events, leaving little room for the stories of common people. That said, some indirect evidence might support Mary's existence. Most historians agree that Jesus was a historical figure. If Jesus lived, it's plausible that his mother, Mary, also existed. By the late 1st century, Christianity was rapidly spreading. Early Christian communities revered Mary, depicting her in art and oral traditions. These portrayals, however, could have been influenced by religious motivations rather than historical facts. Some historians argue that Mary's story might have been influenced by ancient myths. For instance, virgin birth narratives, Mary's virgin birth of Jesus resembles other ancient myths, like the Egyptian goddess Isis giving birth to Horus, or the Greek tale of Perseus' miraculous birth. Mother and goddess archetypes in many ancient cultures, themes of motherhood, fertility, and divine intervention were common. Mary's story might have been shaped by these widespread traditions. These similarities have led skeptics to view Mary's story as a blend of mythological elements. However, religious believers often counter that Mary's story is unique and distinct from these myths. In the early Christian community, Mary held an important place. Her significance grew even more in the centuries that followed. By the 4th century, church leaders like the Church Fathers emphasized Mary's role. At the Council of Ephesus in 431 AD, she was officially recognized as Theotokos. This title elevated her religious status while adding a layer of mysticism to her historical identity. Today, historians are divided on whether Mary was a real person, supporters of her historicity. Some historians argue that Mary likely existed, but that her story has been shaped by cultural and religious influences over time. Skeptics. Others view Mary as a symbolic figure, a product of Jewish, Christian, and pagan traditions merged into a single narrative. Whether Mary was a historical figure or a symbolic creation, her cultural influence is undeniable. She has become a timeless symbol of motherhood, love, and sacrifice. For millions of people, her story continues to inspire and provide hope, regardless of its historical accuracy. The question of Mary's historical reality remains unanswered, yet this uncertainty doesn't diminish her impact on humanity. Mary's story is not just a religious tale, but a legacy that has endured through centuries, inspiring faith, art, and culture. What do you think? Was Mary a real person or a figure shaped by faith and tradition?